What is up, guys, and welcome back to another video. So in today's video, what I'll be doing is showing you guys some of the best strategies that you can use to W key and win more fights in Fortnite Chapter 3. These are going to include all sorts of fighting tips, practice methods, and overall strategies that'll allow you to get more kills and win more fights consistently. If you want to enjoy this video, be sure to drop a like on it and consider subscribing as well if you want to see more content just like this in the future. And if you want to help your boy out a bit extra, then consider using code Teckoh in the Fortnite item shop, as it's completely free and it really does help me out a bunch. But with that said, and without further ado, let's get into today's video. So to start off this video, the first thing I want to talk about is the best loadouts that you should be using to W key in Chapter 3. Now obviously your loadouts are going to vary quite a bit depending on what loot you get off spawn and what game mode you're playing. In general though, it definitely seems like there are some consistent ideas in terms of what weapons and heals to carry in game. So the first thing to consider for your loadout is actually going to be weapons, and this is going to really come down to preference. Generally, when I'm W keying this season, I like to use a simple 3-weapon loadout. This usually consists of an automatic weapon, a shotgun, and a sniper. That covers all of my bases: the shotgun for close range, the automatic weapon for close and mid range, and then the sniper for long range. Typically, the exact weapons I like to use are the Stinger SMG if possible, since it's so OP at the time I'm making this video. Then I like to use the striker pump shotgun and just the regular sniper rifle. But you also have a few other options for weapons. For example, you can replace the SMG with an AR like the MK7 AR, which is wildly overpowered at the moment, or you can use the Ranger AR, which is great for its lack of recoil. And if you're a total psychopath who jumps in everybody's box, then you can also choose the automatic shotgun. Although it's really clunky from pretty much any range, if you can really get in your opponent's face, then it can work. Overall though, when it comes to weapons, the most optimal loadout at this point in time is definitely going to be a 3-weapon loadout, including any sort of automatic weapon, a shotgun, and then a sniper. You do have the option to potentially drop the sniper from this loadout and carry an extra slot of heals, but personally I just prefer holding the sniper. That way all my bases are covered when it comes to fighting distance. Obviously, if you have 3 heals and then you don't have the sniper, then you run into somebody from a distance and it just gets really wonky. At the moment, there aren't that many options since the chapter is pretty much brand new, but I do think that as time goes on, we're going to see more weapons unvaulted and have a bit more variety to spice things up in terms of loadouts. From there, you're also going to want to pick your heals and utility items, which are going to take up your 4th and 5th slots, and obviously your 3rd as well if you don't choose to carry a sniper. As you know, we actually had a few cool new healing items added, like the med mist, the guzzle juice, and even tents. But when it comes to these 2 slots, the best idea seems to be holding 2 different types of heals. As long as your heals cover both health and shield, then you should be set. But one item I want to specifically mention is the spicy chug splashes. These things are seriously overpowered for W keying. Not only do they heal like regular chug splashes do, but they also give you a speed effect just like the regular chili peppers, which makes it insanely easy to push an opponent and get the upper hand in a fight. So whenever you get the opportunity, especially if you're in a team mode, the spicy chug splashes are absolutely absurd and are probably my #1 ranked utility item at this point in time. Moving on from that, the next thing I want to discuss in this video is going to be the best early game strategy when it comes to W keying and getting the maximum amount of kills. Now, contrary to what you might expect, I actually recommend that most players land at a moderately populated spot rather than hot dropping every game when they're trying to W key. My main reasoning for this is the fact that when you consider the risk to reward of a super crowded spawn, you're at a huge risk of dying to a third party, 50-50, or other crazy circumstances, and at best you'll maybe get a few extra early game kills if you manage to make it out, compared to landing at a medium populated spot, getting some good loot, and then clearing it out. What I'm trying to say here is essentially that you don't want to land at the #1 hottest spot every single game if you actually intend on placing well and not just mindlessly W keying. Of course, this idea mainly applies to arena, and if you really don't care about dying off spawn, then you can feel free to drop hot. But for something like arena or a W key game in a tournament, you're much better off getting 3 kills off spawn and leaving with great loot, materials, and HP, compared to running a huge risk of dying off spawn and leaving in shambles by landing super aggressive. Moving on to the next section of this video, and that's going to be mid game. Now, mid game is a bit unique right now in the sense that rotations really aren't solidified on this new map, especially because there's a major lack of POIs toward the center of the map. If you look at the center of the current map, you're going to notice that there's pretty much nothing going on. Of course, it has been revealed that Tilted Towers is supposed to be coming back later into Season 1, which is absolutely amazing, but at the time of recording this video, it's basically just a massive empty chunk of land. So what I recommend you do to W key in mid game is basically to go from POI to POI. Staying in the general vicinity of big name spots is going to be your best idea when it comes to facing the most players, but as the middle of the map becomes populated with POIs, it might become preferable to stick towards center map POIs, especially Tilted once it comes out, in order to run into the most players. But once again, at the moment, it really doesn't make any sense to do that, and I recommend you just go from POI to POI. Aside from knowing how to rotate for the most kills, the only other step in mid game is really just going to be knowing how to win fights. Of course, you can improve at fighting by improving your overall mechanics, doing realistic 1v1s in creative, and all sorts of other things, but the keys to fighting are really going to come down to playing intelligent angles, knowing when and how to disengage, and being prepared for unfortunate third-party situations. In the current meta, you're honestly going to be able to outplay the majority of players by simply being patient, going for smart edits, and having good aim. All of the skills you're going to need for fighting can be attained through simply playing the game a lot, but you can also speed up this process by VOD reviewing your gameplay and looking back to see what you could have done better in fights. And honestly, when it comes to W keying in endgame, the whole process is pretty much going to be the same as it's been previously. Stay ahead of the zones, look for impact frags consistently, and ultimately just focus on finding an opportunity to take height and spray down on everyone else to eventually win the game. We've still got launch pads in the game, which you're really going to want to use in order to look for height, and in general, the tips that I would give for endgame, at least at this point in time, are essentially the same as previous seasons. If you do need a bit of extra help with endgame, I do have some videos specifically about it, which you can feel free to check out, but otherwise, your approach to endgame when you're W keying shouldn't be much different than it's been in the past. So finally, guys, moving into the last bit of this video, what I want to do is basically just give you all some general tips that I have when it comes to W keying in chapter 3. These are just some random tips that I've picked up during my time playing or found from other people, which can help you out when it comes to W keying and winning fights. So my first general tip for winning fights in chapter 3 is going to be to really prioritize your aim training, especially when it comes to tracking in close to mid-range. As you know, at least at the time I'm recording this video, SMGs are absolutely the meta. The Stinger SMG is wildly overpowered, and the MK7 rifle is absolutely brutal from a distance as well. At the moment, we're really in a spray and pray type of meta, and I'm sure that Epic is probably going to do something about it, maybe nerf or adjust some of these weapons to make things a bit more fair. But for the moment, adding a bit of extra aim training for SMGs and ARs will seriously pay off. What I'd recommend you guys do is grind out a ton of aim duels. More specifically, any type of SMG drill within a small area, and the glider scenario that allows you to practice tracking opponents mid-air. To do this, I recommend you guys use Raiders 1v1 Aim Trainer, which was recently updated to have a bunch of new weapons and is really helpful for improving your aim. If you're interested, I'll toss up the code on screen right now for that map. My next quick tip for W keying and winning fights in chapter 3 is going to be to make sure that you always have solid mobility. In chapter 3, we've got plenty of really good mobility options. We have quad crashers, cars, rifts, boats, and more that are probably going to make their way into the game in upcoming months as well. What I strongly recommend you do is to make sure that whenever you're W keying, you always land in areas that have good options for mobility. That way you're not stuck running around on foot trying to get kills, since that's obviously far less efficient. Especially at this point in time, most POIs are closer to the edge of the map, which means it's a lot harder to simply hover around the middle of the map and have people come toward you. Therefore, it's even more useful now to have mobility items and vehicles, because obviously you have to make your way around very fast. It's a bit of a simple tip, but this is really one of those fundamental things that some players still seem to miss out on. Finally, guys, getting into my last tip of today's video, and this tip is going to be to really focus on learning from your mistakes. Chapter 3 is really complex, and whether you're watching this in the first few weeks or even a season or two in, chances are you're still trying to learn and improve with all sorts of different items, strategies, etc. Since there's always so much to learn, it's really important to VOD review and really just think about what you do right and wrong in game and how to fix it. If there's one thing that separates pros from the average player, it's definitely that ability to recognize mistakes in their own gameplay and then take action and improve so they don't make the same mistakes next time. So overall, take that time to VOD review, take that time to reflect on the different situations you run into and how they turned out, and really just do what you can to learn from your own gameplay. Not only will this help you as an overall player, but especially when it comes to W keying, oftentimes the main reasons we lose are because of the simple mistakes that we make consistently, and finding those simple mistakes and fixing them can absolutely help you take your W keying to the next level. But with all that said, guys, that's going to wrap it up for today's video on how to improve at W keying and win more fights in Fortnite Chapter 3 Season 1. If this video helped you out, then be sure to drop a like on it and consider subscribing as well if you want to see more content just like this in the future. Also, guys, I plan on posting all sorts of different tips and tricks videos, including more W key related content in the future, so definitely be sure to hit that notification bell if you haven't already, that way you don't miss out. And finally, guys, if you want to go that extra step to help your boy out, then consider using code Teckoh in the Fortnite item shop. It's completely free for you and it really does help me out a bunch. With all that said though, thank you all for watching this video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye for now.